Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today I have four questions I want to go over today, so it's going to be a more Q&A style podcast. But first, before I dive into that, if you are interested in a body recomp, what it is, how to do it, the two different types of body recomp, things that you need to be looking out for, the importance of focusing on body composition, then my free checklist is for you. I go over 10 things you need to really focus on your body composition. So the link to that is in the show notes. Again, it's completely free. Make sure you go and check that out. And yeah, ton of great practical information on there for you. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's question. So I actually have a really good question came from is a fellow coach, and this was a great question. So it was, Alan Aragon noted on Huberman recomp at 1.2 to 2 grams per pound of body weight in a surplus. Should I do it? So I think this is a great question here. So I want to talk about what would be the benefits of doing this, going higher protein in a phase like this, and then really some things to look out for. So should you do it? I definitely think if you've never tried it and in the past you've always gone like maybe a little less protein in your build, then 100% give this a shot and see. But so some things that I want to go over here with this. So I think one of the benefits of doing this is one, we're gonna have the thermic effect of food, right? So protein uses the most energy to absorb and digest. And so you're looking at about 20 to 30% from a caloric standpoint. So you're looking at anywhere from for 1,000 calories from protein, which would be, I want to say, about 250 grams of protein. You're probably looking at 200-ish calories, give or take, in terms of an increase in thermic effective food, right? These are crude numbers. Don't take this as like a set in stone thing, right? Because metabolism is very dynamic and complex, and it's never just a hey additive type thing. There's always, when you change one variable, something else down the line switches up and changes. Again, don't take that number with like a for sure thing, right? But on average, you can expect that you eat 1,000 calories from protein, your energy expenditure is going to ramp up a bit, right? So you can leverage that here with this, where now you can have an overall higher caloric intake. Somebody could be eating 3,200 calories, but then now their thermic effect food increase that, and now what you thought was a surplus may be closer to maintenance. You can leverage the thermic effect of food here with this kind of higher protein intake and in a surplus. But what that means is now we can be at a risk of under consuming calories, which in a building phase, one of my main goals of a building phase is we need to make sure that we're in the right energy balance. We don't want to see our weight trend down. And so now obviously if we're eating more protein, there's a chance that we could be in the wrong energy balance. So it could be easier to undereat calories. So you'd want to watch that. So you would need to make sure. This is where I like tracking body weight to see, like, where's your body weight trending over multiple weeks? Is it trending down? Is it trending up? Is it staying around the same? That's going to give you the best idea of what your current energy balance is. And then obviously pair it with your biofeedback. Are you feeling like your training's not going as well? Are you gassing out? Are you looking flatter? Like, these would be things I would be looking at there to see if you're in a deficit or not in that. So you can leverage the thermic effect of food. Now, because of this, it may be tougher to gain body fat, right? One, obviously from the energy balance side of things, but protein is just a lot harder to be stored as body fat, especially when we're consuming enough calories. Sorry, it's to be stored as body fat and to be used for energy. It's tough to do that. And then obviously, even when we're eating it, like again, from even if we are in a surplus, protein is still tougher to be, like, the body doesn't necessarily want to store that as fat. Like it will if it's in a surplus, but it's less likely. Like it's harder to do that, right? But again, it comes back to the energy balance thing where it's harder to get into a larger surplus that would really lead to fat gain because of the fact potentially the higher thermic effect of food and the satiety side of things as well too. That's another big thing is we're also going to get the satiety here, especially at 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight. For some people, it's, you would think eating more calories would help offset some hunger. Your diet is lower in protein and higher in like processed type foods, like your hunger may be high and it could be harder to eat in the right amount and you could be in a larger surplus. Whereas again, this higher protein intake is going to help with the satiety side of things as well. So you're less likely to consume more calories, which could potentially be an issue, right? If now we're under eating calories. So you do need to look out for that. So this would be different from person to person, right? If you're someone who you're already super lean, you've had issues with eating enough calories in the past, you probably don't need to go this high. Whereas if you're someone in the past who maybe you've been overweight in the past and or you tend to be super hungry and you've gained more body fat in the past in your building phases than you would like, then this could be a good strategy for you for all these reasons that I've talked about so far. But then we look at this study from Jose Antonio. He looked at super high protein amounts. I think it was up to 4.4. So this was a 2014 study on high protein diets, 4.4 grams kilogram a day, 30 resistance trained men and women. So the control was 1.8 grams. So still a good amount, right? Like you're talking about 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. High protein 4.4 would be around 2.2-ish, give or take. It was an 8-week study, no changes to the exercise regimen. In the high protein group, they consumed whey and casein supplements. And then the high protein group consumed about 307 grams of protein per day, 800 more calories more than baseline. And they saw no significant changes in body weight, fat mass, lean mass, or percent body fat. Right now, you could hear some of that and be like, well, why did body fat or why did lean mass not increase? Well, I think the takeaway with that is there gets to a point with protein where it's not going to be additive to muscle. Right? You're going to get from my understanding, that number is probably somewhere between 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight is where you're going to see that plateau of adding more muscle. At that point, your training stimulus is the most important anyways, and the protein is going to be additive to that. But you're not going to be able to eat 2 grams per pound of body weight and expect more muscle just from eating more protein. Again, that would have to come from better training, better recovery, et cetera, if you want to continue to build more muscle. And then again, it's still going to be capped by genetics, and your body just doesn't like to add a lot of muscle. Like we have to go out of our way to do that, right? But I think that the key thing here is it didn't increase fat mass, but they ate almost 800 calories more per day, right? And that's on average there. So again, the high thermic effect of food. So again, it's going to probably prevent fat gain compared to carb fat overfeeding for that reason. But again, probably it's satiating, but the thermic effect of food is probably going to be the biggest thing. And then potentially, is there some sort of mechanism where it's like now it's harder to store body fat with protein than it would be from carbs and fats? Probably would think so. I would think that there's something there with that. And there was also no negative health outcomes reported. And again, just understand this was an 8-week study. This wasn't like it was 32 weeks there. But again, it's also, like we talked about, it's going to support satiety and then obviously the increase in caloric intake there. But it's unlikely to drive extra muscle gain without the training progression there. So again, like that kind of study shows that would be something that you could do and likely gain less body fat. So now let's say 800 calories, that's a significant amount of calories, but it's through protein, which for some people may not be as tasty. I don't think it's as tasty, but it could be if you like it there. But again, like I said, we have to look at the satiety. The satiety could be high and we need to make sure we're consuming enough calories now. And that's where you would look at your body weight. Where's that trending? Because in a building phase, we don't want to be in an energy deficit that would cause us to lose body fat. One, that's not going to be best for building muscle. You can still build muscle by doing that. It's just not going to be as good as it would be if you were consuming enough calories there, right? So those are a few things to look at. Now, a few other things is we still need to make sure we eat enough carbs during this time. So you would look at make sure training's good during this time. And that's the biggest problem with too much protein is now, again, you're going to be able to eat more calories, which means you probably can largely unchange your carbohydrate amount. We still would want to make sure we're eating enough carbohydrates to drive training performance recovery, and that is going to help support the muscle building process as well too. So still make sure you're eating enough carbohydrates because as I said, the downside is now we could be under eating food, protein's very high satiety. So it can be easy to be like, well, I'm not freaking hungry. Now you're not fueling enough, and that's going to impact your training, which we know training is the big driver of muscle growth as a study, as we referenced from that last study. I would look at food quality too. You probably want to find more easier to digest foods outside of protein. So again, where people can get themselves in trouble is if they have a dieting background and they are very like fat loss focused. I can see that these types of people eating really high amounts of veggies, fruit. Again, the first thing that comes to mind is like cauliflower rice, like things built around that. Like not to say that stuff's bad. Like we want to have some high food volume stuff, but for also consuming super high protein and then really high quote unquote diet foods, one, it's not going to be great on your gut. So you need to look at that. But then also it's going to be really hard to eat the amount of calories that you need. You would likely be in a energy deficit. It would be much easier to be in a energy deficit there. And again, we want to watch our gut health. So that would be the other thing here is watching your gut health with this. Because again, the high protein load, depending on the type of protein you have, I think if it's like a lot of animal protein, again, that could start to be challenging from a digestion standpoint. If it's more protein powder, that's probably a little bit different. But again, we want to watch our gut health with this high protein intake. And that comes back to finding some foods that are probably going to be easier on the gut to digest, right? This is where you want to switch to, again, some more higher calorie dense type stuff, avocados, oils, rice, some breads, bagels, right? Things that are a bit easier to digest on the gut and they are not going to be super heavy there. And again, remember this high protein intake in a surplus in building is we're not using it to necessarily gain more muscle. Now, again, could it potentially help with that at up to 1.5 to 2? Potentially. Again, the biggest driver of that's going to be your training. So again, I'm not saying that there's not a benefit of going a bit higher from a protein perspective, because I do think there's individual differences here that we need to take into account. So if you've never done it before, give it a shot. Like you may find that you do actually build a bit more muscle with that. As we get higher and higher, we can't expect it to linearly, muscle growth to linearly increase with that. That's really what I'm getting at. Training is going to be the biggest thing there. Training volume, training intensity, making sure you're recovering from training. Like those are going to be the big drivers, right? You can't have terrible training methods and eat a ton of protein, because that's not going to be the thing that's going to drive muscle growth on there. But I think the big benefit of this higher protein intake from a quote unquote recomp effect in a calorie surplus is the thermic effect of food, tougher to stores body fat, and the high satiety side of things. Those would be the three major players here that are going to allow you to do that. But again, we need to understand that you're not, the goal here is to not lose body fat. I think when people hear recomp, that's what they automatically think it's going to be, this like losing body fat, building muscle. If you can add muscle with minimal fat gain to no fat gain, that's a recomp, because now you're increasing your lean body mass relative to your fat mass, which in turn is going to drop your body fat percentage. But you're not actively dropping fat mass in this process, right? Because that would require an energy deficit for that to happen somewhere along the lines, right? And again, we don't want to do that for these people. Now, if you're someone who's maybe not, you have a little bit higher body fat levels, maybe that's something you would pursue, but I still would want to take some time away from trying to drop body fat, right? So this is all contextual as well too. So hopefully this was helpful and gave you some insight into if you should try these higher protein amounts in a surplus. And I definitely think you should. I think there's good rationale to at least give it a go. You just need to make sure those things I talked about were in check. All right. So do you count running as steps, or would you count running as steps? Do you do it for your clients? This is a good question. Obviously, steps are just a measure of movement. It's a way to quantify our overall movement throughout the day. So what I would say on this is we still would want to be active. So if you do count it, that's fine. Like count it towards it, but I would want to know, hey, if you got 15,000 steps that day, were some of those from your runs? Because the big thing to me with overall movement is teaching movement outside of the gym, right? You get 20,000 steps, that's great. Like we want to hit that. But if you do it all at one time and then you don't move the rest of the day, I do think you're not getting the full benefits of movement, right? We do want to make sure that if you do run, I just want to know what percentage of that is from running. And then from a movement perspective, are we getting some movement outside of those runs, right? Because we do want to get that. So yeah, still count it. However, what we do want to look at though is there would be a higher fatigue cost with running. Okay. So again, it's not that we want to avoid fatigue at all costs. We want to push our fitness, things like that. That's going to come with a fatigue cost, and we need some fatigue. However, it's a problem when that balance gets out of whack, right? Like if again, 75% of your movement is from running, then that's where I'm a little bit more concerned, and I would want to look into that there, right? Because of that high fatigue cost, running is going to be a little bit tougher on the body. So when we look at managing overall stress load on the body, that could become problematic for some people. Benefits of walking as movement, right? So you're going to get the energy expenditure benefits, right? So anytime we move more, you're going to increase the amount of calories that you're burning throughout the day. That's a win. That's good. That's going to help with body composition. It's going to help with energy flux. That's good. We want to push that. However, where it starts to differ now between running, because again, running is probably going to be from an energy expenditure standpoint, it's likely going to be a bit more efficient. But where we're going to start to see diverging paths here is going to be walking is going to likely be additive to recovery. Because it is low impact, it's good for our body. We need to move. You compare it with other things and go outside with family, friends, whatever it may be. Whereas running, again, you can do those same things, but it's likely going to be a debt from a recovery standpoint, which means we have to pay that debt somewhere along the lines. We can't just keep digging that debt, and we can't keep getting further in debt. Whereas again, walking can it can do all the things that running can, maybe a little less efficient in terms of in terms of increasing your energy expenditure, but walking is going to help can almost speed up recovery in a way, right? And you get all those benefits that I talked about. So again, you can totally count running as your steps, quote unquote, but I would still want to know, like I would differentiate those two there. And then obviously pair it with your biofeedback, pair it with your resting heart rate, HRV, whatever, and see where that's at, and see if your resting heart rate's increasing or if your HRV is decreasing. And then is your subjective biofeedback decreasing? Do you feel more beat up? Do you feel more tired, lethargic, et cetera? Those would be things I would be looking at there with that. A good question though. All right. So do you enjoy working out? Are there times you don't enjoy it? So first of all, as a whole, yes, I love working out. Like I wouldn't do this if I didn't, if I absolutely hated it. So I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the process of trying to progress. I enjoy how I feel after I work out. I enjoy knowing the benefits of moving your body like that becomes an enjoyable thing, knowing that you're doing something positive for yourself, right? So from that standpoint, I do enjoy working out. Plus, I like the aesthetic benefits of it as well, too. That's awesome. The confidence benefits of it. So 100%, I do enjoy working out, and I like the obviously nerdy side of things of exercise and the exercise physiology, everything like that. Are there times I don't enjoy it though? 100%. I think if anyone says they always enjoy exercising, they're completely out of their mind. They're lying to you, because there's definitely times where I don't enjoy it. And there's times where I'm like, man, I really don't want to work out. I don't want to do this. I think that's definitely happened more lately, just because of when you have more things on your plate, more things you're doing, like more cognitive demand, like that is definitely going to be something that will impact your ability to be motivated to work out. People don't really realize that sleep is probably not as great as it has been in the past. I'm having to wake up a bit earlier because I want to get some stuff done before Colby wakes up. So there's a lot of things going on there that will impact how you feel towards working out. And I've definitely noticed that a bit more. Plus, there's times where I really don't want to try and push myself or progress, but it's like I know that's what I need to do because maybe I've been a little bit lackluster with some of that. What I try and connect the dots here with clients of like, hey, you haven't been motivated to work out. Is it a goal thing? Do we need to change that? Do we need to change up our workouts a little bit? But also what's going on outside of the gym, because that is going to impact your motivation towards working out. So again, you're going to enjoy it. I enjoy it, but there's also times where I don't enjoy it and I don't want to do it. And then also like your environment's key. So there's times when right now in our garage gym, we don't have AC or heat or anything. Right? And in St. Louis, where we're from, the weather, we get all 4 seasons. And so in the summer, it can get very hot, upwards in the upper 90s with humidity. And then in the winter, you can get down into the teens or lower, even the single digits in terms of that. And then overnight, sometimes it can get negative in terms of temperature, right? So those are things that during those times, I'm like, God, I really don't want to freaking work out there. And then obviously you have more stuff going on. It's like, it would be nice if I could just relax and not have to go and work out. So 100% that happens. And then the kind of second follow-up question with this is, what do you do to push through those times you don't want to work out? So what do? I lean into that of not wanting to go and being like, okay, hey, that resistance in anything is a sign that you need to lean into that a little bit. Right? So for me, I'm leaning into that and I'm going, right. I'm also, to go back to what I said earlier, I'm also basing it on how I know I feel afterwards. Like I know when I complete a workout, I feel way better. And so I'm always thinking about that, how I feel after that. And then I also am thinking about time, like I'm also thinking about how I would feel if I didn't work out. Like I would, again, not everyone's built the same, whether this is a healthy or unhealthy pattern. Like I know that would be something that would weigh on me. And I would be constantly thinking about it, I'd be stressing, and that would lead to other issues down the line elsewhere. And so, like for me, I'm keeping that in my mind. And that is my driving factor for when I don't want to do it. Plus, knowing too, as humans, that we're always going to choose the path of least resistance, and our brain, our body's gonna push us towards doing the easiest thing with expending the less energy, right? So again, leaning into that and understanding human physiology and human psychology, I think that's important as well too, knowing that like, okay, hey, my body doesn't want to do this, and that again is leading into that a little bit. But for me, it's going back to how it makes me feel when I do it, and then also how it makes me feel when I don't do it, right? And how that would impact me. I was just having this conversation with a client the other day because they're struggling to get in, they're not motivated to work out, and it's like, I had a long day. Last thing I want to do is work out. And again, it's like you probably need to lean into that, because it's a weird thing where you're tired. That's the last thing you want to do is work out. Again, that's a sign that you probably need to go and move your body, and your body needs that. But again, it's a hard thing to understand what's going on there, and it's hard to lean into that. So hopefully that's helpful. But I told him like, you need to pay attention to how it makes you feel versus, a lot of people work out because of solely for aesthetic reasons of, I need to burn calories, I need to lose weight. And I can see when you're feeling that way, like and then maybe you're not losing the weight you want. So then it's like, why the hell am I doing this anyways? And so I think if you can put yourself in how you feel afterwards and really pay attention to that, I think that can help you push through there. So hopefully that's helpful. That's it for this episode. If you guys have any questions on this episode, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff HOEH, just shoot me a DM. If you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating or a review, and that will help more people find it. And I'll chat with you guys next time.